The Master's Challenge. The dojo was silent, except for the rhythmic sound of breathing from the students lined up in seiza position. In the center, the old sensei, a man with hunched shoulders but eyes as sharp as blades, watched Bruce Lee with an expression that mixed skepticism and curiosity. He had heard about the young Chinese fighter. They said he was fast, accurate, almost supernatural. But the sensei, a veteran of countless battles, didn't believe in legends. "They say you're the fastest in the world," the master said, his voice hoarse but firm. "But speed without control is just a waste of energy. Show me something worth seeing." Bruce didn't move. His eyes, dark and intense, fixed on the sensei with a calm that seemed to defy time itself. Then he smiled, a quick, almost imperceptible smile. "Doubt me," he said, his voice as soft as a whisper. The sensei raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Before he could respond, Bruce was already gone. There was no wind, there was no warning. In the blink of an eye, the young man was behind the master, his right hand hovering just a hair's breadth away from the back of the sensei's head, his fingers slightly curved as if they were going to close in a blow. The entire room held its breath. The sensei, motionless, felt the heat of Bruce's hand inches from his skin. 2 seconds. That's all it took. When the master turned around, Bruce was already back in his starting position, his hands relaxed at his sides, as if he had never moved. The air in the dojo seemed thicker, charged with something that wasn't just surprise, but respect. The sensei said nothing for a long moment. Then he tilted his head slightly, a minimal but sufficient gesture. "I understand why they talk about you so much," he murmured. Bruce just smiled again, this time softer. "Speed is just a tool," he said. "The real power is in knowing when to use it." And with that, the challenge was over. There was no need for grandiose words or exaggerated demonstrations. Just 2 seconds, and a lesson the sensei would never forget. The weight of silence. The dojo gradually emptied, the students dispersing into small groups, whispering among themselves. Some stole glances at Bruce, as if he were a walking legend, something that shouldn't exist outside of the ancient scrolls. Others, however, kept their distance, their faces closed in distrust. Among them, young Takeshi, the sensei's most promising disciple, watched Bruce with an expression that mixed admiration and something darker, something that resembled resentment. Bruce noticed. It wasn't the first time he'd seen that look. Men like Takeshi always reacted the same way, first, disbelief, then, anger at having been surpassed, finally, the need to prove something, even if it meant breaking one's own rules. The sensei approached, his steps light on the worn tatami. "You're not just fast, Bruce. You're different." His voice was low, almost a whisper. "But speed without purpose is just a trick. And tricks don't win real fights." Bruce raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. I knew what was coming next. Takeshi wants to test him. Unofficially, of course. But he won't let it go. "I didn't come here to fight with your students, sensei. It doesn't matter what you came to do. He's already decided he needs to beat you." The master sighed. "And Takeshi isn't like the others. He doesn't just fight with his body." Bruce understood. There was something in the air, a tension that went beyond ordinary rivalry. Takeshi was not just a gifted student, he carried the weight of a lineage, of a name that his father, a former kenjutsu master, had tarnished years before by losing a dishonorable fight. Since then, Takeshi trained with an almost unhealthy obsession, as if his every victory could erase the past. And now, Bruce was the obstacle he couldn't ignore. Night in the garden. Bruce didn't sleep well. Not out of fear, never out of fear, but because he knew Takeshi wouldn't wait for dawn. The dojo was on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a garden of rocks and ancient cherry trees. The full moon illuminated the gravel paths, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. Bruce was sitting in seiza under one of the trees, his eyes closed, when he heard the first noise. It wasn't a step. It was the slide of a blade being drawn. He opened his eyes. Takeshi was 3 meters away, the katana shining in the silver light. There was no anger on his face, just a cold, calculated calm. As if it were a ritual. "You shouldn't have come here," Bruce said, without moving. "I had no choice." Takeshi adjusted his grip on the sword hilt. "My father lost to a man who relied too much on speed. I wouldn't make the same mistake." Bruce sighed. He stood up slowly, his hands still empty. "You don't want to do this. It's already done." The first attack was quick, but not unexpected. Takeshi swung the blade in a perfect arc, aiming for Bruce's neck. He dodged it with minimal movement, feeling the wind from the sword pass inches from his skin. Before Takeshi could step back, Bruce grabbed his wrist and twisted, disarming him with a single movement. The katana fell to the ground with a metallic clang. Takeshi backed away, his eyes burning. Not of pain, but of humiliation. "That wasn't a fight," he growled. "It was a trick." "It was technique," Bruce corrected. "And you're still alive. That should say something." But Takeshi didn't listen. He lunged again, this time without his sword, his fists flying in practiced sequences. Bruce blocked each blow with precision, but didn't fight back. There was no need. Until Takeshi made the mistake. In a moment of fury, he grabbed a rock from the ground and threw it at Bruce. The movement was clumsy, desperate. Bruce dodged it easily, but the rock ricocheted off a tree and hit Takeshi in the shoulder, causing him to stumble. It was then that Bruce saw it. It wasn't just anger. There was something more, something Takeshi tried to hide, even from himself. He was shaking. "Enough," said Bruce, firmly. "You are not your father. And I am not the man who defeated you." Takeshi froze. For a second, Bruce thought he was going to attack again. But then, something broke in the young man's eyes. Shoulders slumped, breathing became irregular. "I can't fail," he murmured, his voice breaking. "If I fail, everything he suffered will be worth nothing." Bruce understood then. It wasn't about him. Never had been. He walked over and placed a hand on Takeshi's shoulder. "Your father didn't lose because he was weak. He lost because he trusted in something that wasn't his. The speed, the strength, those things don't belong to anyone. They're just tools. What matters is what you do with them." Takeshi looked at him, eyes moist. "What if I don't know what to do?" Bruce smiled, for the first time without irony. "Then you train. Until you know." The dawn. The next morning, the dojo was different. There was no tension in the air, just respectful silence. Takeshi trained alone, his movements slower, more deliberate. The sensei watched from afar, a slight smile on his face. Bruce was leaving. There was nothing left to prove, no lessons to teach. He already had what he came for, and, perhaps, left something in return. As he turned to leave, Takeshi called out to him. "Bruce-san." He stopped. "Thanks." Bruce nodded. "I didn't say anything else." He passed through the dojo gate and disappeared down the road, leaving behind only the echo of 2 seconds that had changed everything.